Councilor Aaron coming. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eileen Duff. I am the counsel for the 5th District, where the nominee lives in my birth town of Peabody, Massachusetts. And so I will be chairing the hearing. I will read the nomination letter from our governor. Dear councilors, I am pleased to nominate Michelle A. Yee to the position of Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. Sincerely, Maura T. Healy, Governor of the Commonwealth. So what we will do is hear the witnesses first. And they're welcome to stand or sit over there if they like, whatever is most convenient for them. And the first witness will be Richard Schmidt.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Nice to be here again. See some familiar faces. I've been doing this forever. I'm thrilled to be here this afternoon to speak on behalf of Michelle for her nomination. I share the council's interest in making sure that good judges get appointed. 30 years working the Norfolk Probate Court, here in Suffolk Probate Court. I understand just how crucially important it is to have good judges. Without them, the system just doesn't work. I firmly believe that Michelle will be a good judge and in short order, a great judge. She has all the qualifications. She has strong background. She had 3 years of private practice, which I think is not essential, but I think it helps. It's a benefit to have appeared in court representing a client in front of a judge to really get to understand how important it is to have a judge that is patient, understanding, respectful of the attorneys and the people that appear in front of the court. I think that's crucial, and I would expect nothing but that from Michelle. I've worked with Michelle for almost 20 years in one fashion or another, and she understands what a difference it makes to appear in front of a judge that is trying to help, not get in the way of resolution. And I think that her 18-year career in the probate court is giving her the other insight into how the court system works. She knows what the job is. I think the most important qualifications from my experience, and I worked with a lot of judges in 30 years, and I worked with a lot of judges that were just starting out in those 30 years. First and foremost, they have to be smart. It's an incredibly difficult job. It is so intellectually demanding. The job's a lot easier the smarter you are. Michelle is wicked smart. I can tell you that right now. Michelle made me realize that if I was smarter, my job would have been easier. But you know, you dealt. If you second, and I think just as important, if not more important, is you have to want to work hard. And I emphasize you have to want to work hard. And I've never worked with anyone who's worked harder than Michelle. It's in her DNA. She can't do enough. She asks her to do anything. She's happy to do it. You don't ask her, she'll offer to do it. Many a night after hours when I'd be in my office trying to catch up on work, she'd say, the traffic's bad going north. I'm going to stay. So can I help you with your stuff? And yeah, absolutely. So, if Michelle hadn't gone to Salem, take the job as a judicial case manager, I might not have retired so young. But she was absolutely made my job easier. I think it's important for a judge to be comfortable on the bench. Be patient, respectful, understanding. I think is the most important skill a judge can have. Michelle has witnessed for 18 years and demonstrated this ability throughout her career in the court. She's always willing to assist, whether it's assisting judges with questions and asking for help, court staff, attorneys, and the public by answering questions and providing assistance. I am sure that she'll continue when she takes on her new role to be just as helpful in seeking to assist the bench, the bar, the public and the staff. I could not be more confident that Michelle will make a great judge someday and be a tremendous asset to the probate court. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, councilors. Councilor Devaney.
Thank you for coming back. How many years?
Last time I was here is when I was nominated for the Register of Probate in Norfolk County. That was 2000. So it's been a long time.
Well, tell me, with all that experience, she found his nominee.
Well, just say she's smart, so the job won't overwhelm her. She knows what the job is. Sometimes I think boys who haven't worked in the court system appreciate just how difficult the job is, and it becomes a little bit overwhelming. But Michelle has great patience. She's willing to help anybody. She knows the law as well as anyone, and she can apply it with common sense and compassion. I mean, I think I don't want to say she's a perfect candidate because none of us are perfect, but she comes close.
Okay, so was she judicial case manager working with you?
She was my assistant judicial case manager. She was a sessions clerk. She started off as a law clerk. So she started off as a law clerk, private practice, came back, took a sessions clerk's job because she just was convinced that this is what she wanted to do, was work in the court system. And then she was assistant manager and went to Salem as the judicial case manager.
So about how many years have you?
20.
And I've said this before. I have seen in my tenure someone sitting there and I've said, well, how much experience have you had? How many times have you seen him or her in court? Once.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know both sides, you know, the private and the professional.
Yes.
This means a lot to me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other councilors?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next witness will be Caitlin Lynch.
Good afternoon, Governor's Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about Michelle Yee and her nomination for Justice of Probate and Family Court. I first met Attorney Yee in 2014 when she came to Salem Probate and Family Court as an assistant judicial case manager. I was in private practice, which primarily focused in probate law, guardianships, and estate planning. As you know, in 2015, Attorney Yee became the judicial case manager. In my interactions with her, which were many due to the nature of my practice, which had a lot of emergency matters, she was always very responsive, attentive, and helpful. Matters or answering questions regarding procedural matters, legal questions. I also had the opportunity to observe her in her interactions with the public. Before, the judicial case managers used to sometimes sit in the registry or help out in the courtrooms. She was so patient with people. As you know, probate court, there's not a lot of happy things that happen there. They're private cases, they're emotional. An attorney always took the time to listen to people, to make them feel like they had their moment, which I think is very important. She also made sure that they had realistic expectations of what the probate court could help with and could address. I feel that Attorney Yee has always been very respectful of everyone's perspectives while also giving very good legal opinions and advice. I used to say that Attorney Yee didn't always give me the answer I wanted, but I knew if I did it that way, it would be done correctly. During COVID, she was instrumental in having the court keep working. She was always responsive, and I keep saying responsive because there's nothing more frustrating. Practicing attorney can't get an answer from anyone. Even if it was a response, I would be right with you. I'll look into that. She never let a phone call or an email go unanswered. Attorney Yee helped out. I saw her help out in the courtroom. I saw her help out in the registry. She's such a team player. It doesn't matter what has to be done. She really will do anything if it's going to help further the justice is administered fairly and timely. In 2022, I became an assistant registrar at Salem Probate Court. I was thrilled to learn that I would still be able to have Attorney Yee as a resource as senior program manager. She assists 14 divisions helping us basically with any training that we may need. She trains new clerks, assistant judicial case managers. She also, in our situation, helped the assistant registrars we began doing some routine uncontested allowables, which is another way to help further justice is done timely. So her knowledge is just, it's in every aspect of the probate court, which I think is very unique. In private practice, you focus usually in one area or the other. An attorney has experience with domestic, with probate, with equities, change of name. Really, she's seen everything. One thing I've learned in the year working in the court is that something new comes up every week. And when you work in the court, you're seeing that every week. Private practice, you maybe have a couple a year. It really does make you go back to the statute, go back to the law. And I think Attorney Yee has such a knowledge of that. She has a confidence, which I think will aid her so well sitting on the bench. I think Attorney Yee also has a very unique perspective of working with attorneys, the general public, judicial staff, registry staff, and judges. It really is a lot of interworkings in the court, which I had no idea about until I started working there. So I think Attorney Yee understands how everything works. I mean, she understands because she's had to deal with the general public that she really knows how to treat people with respect and listen to them, while at the same time really being confident in her decisions. So I think Attorney Yee would be a wonderful addition.
Thank you, Attorney. Council Devaney.
Thank you for coming. Now, how often do you see her? Do you work every day with?
So I've practiced for 13 years in Salem Probate Court, and I was there probably a couple times a week. So I had constant interactions with Attorney Yee from 2014 until she left in 2022. It was probably weekly. Now, as in the new positions, I'd say she's come to training several times. There's been some new case law that's come down, and we've had to reach out to the administrative office for some guidance. But Attorney Yee really is a resource that when we're sitting there in registry or even talking with assistant judicial case managers trying to figure out what is the legal solution for this, we've reached out to Attorney Yee for her legal opinion.
What were you most impressed with that you'll bring as a judge?
I think the first is just her knowledge. She really does have so much knowledge and she's so intelligent. I think that just her experience with, as I mentioned before, with all of these cases is really something that she's not going to have to kind of learn as she goes for a lot of these things, that she has a foundation in every area. And I think also her compassion, just her ability to really understand people may have been sitting there in the court for 3-4 hours. They want to feel that when they're in front of that judge, they're heard and that they've had their day in court. And I think she gives that to people.
Thank you.
Any other councils? No, thank you so much. Anybody else here would like to testify in support? Hearing none, anyone testifying against? Hearing none, you may introduce anyone you've brought with you that you'd like to introduce and then make your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I'm getting over being sick, so I'm a little hoarse. I want to introduce my mother-in-law, she's here, my husband, Robert Kaminsky, my father, Patrick Yee, and my 2 boys, Patrick and Christian Kaminsky. And then also Jenna from Administrative Office, Deputy Court Administrator Dominic DeCenzo, and Chief Justice Casey.
Thank you.
I want to begin by thanking you councilors for your time and careful consideration of my application. I want to thank Governor Maura Healey for nominating me, Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, Chief Legal Counsel Paige Scott Reed, Deputy Court Legal Counsel Derek Hasselheim and their staff, Administrative Secretary Valerie McCarthy, the members of the Judicial Nominating Commission, and the members of the Joint Bar. To Councilor Duff, thank you for hosting my hearing today. And finally, I want to thank my family, witnesses, and those that have supported me along the way, especially my supervisors and mentors, Chief Justice John Casey and Deputy Court Administrator Dominic DeCenzo. I am humbled to be here today, to be considered by you for the position of Associate Justice of the Probate and Family Court. I come before you with a deep sense of gratitude and a strong commitment to public service. I want to share some of my background and my journey, which has shaped my perspective and has led me to seek this position. Growing up, I could not imagine that being a lawyer or even going to law school was a possibility. I am the proud product of an intergenerational immigrant family. My parents currently spend time in California and Minnesota to help my sister and brother care for their families, and my father traveled here from Minnesota to be with me today. My mother unfortunately could not make the trip from California. My father immigrated at the age of 13 from China. My mother was 20 when she immigrated from the Philippines. My parents met in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and married in 1972. They just celebrated their 51st wedding anniversary. Their journey to the United States instilled in me the importance of embracing diversity and fostering an understanding of different communities. Growing up in Minneapolis, my brothers and sisters and I were surrounded by extended family as my parents worked tirelessly to create a better life and more opportunities for our family. It was there, in our small Chinese restaurant, that I learned the values of hard work and perseverance. Education and life experiences have always been important to my parents. Sending me off to the University of Miami was a testament to those beliefs. I not only received an education, but I got to experience different cultures at Miami. I also had the privilege of meeting my husband. My first thoughts of becoming a lawyer came as I was finishing my undergraduate education. Subsequently, I moved to Massachusetts to attend Suffolk University Law School. In 2001, I graduated from law school, took the bar exam, started my legal career as a judicial law clerk, and got married. Family is at the heart of my values, and I am proud to be married for over 22 years and the mother of 2 boys. My commitment to family extends beyond my immediate household. My mother lived with us for 14 years, and my in-laws lived just down the street from us. These connections contributed not only to the upbringing of my children, but also serving as a reminder of the importance of intergenerational bonds and caregiving. My first experience with the probate and family court was as a law clerk and steered me towards the practice of family law. While working as an attorney, I learned the skills needed to effectively represent and guide my clients. I handled cases with complicated financial issues as well as contested custody, parenting time, and support issues, guardianships, and estates. For the past 18 years, I have dedicated my career to the probate and family court, gaining invaluable experience, understanding, and insight into the inner workings of our legal system. I have been a sessions clerk, assistant judicial case manager, and MEPC magistrate. I have helped many families navigate the courts and have worked closely with dozens of judges. I have sat in hundreds, if not thousands, of court sessions and assisted with resolving conflicts with self-represented litigants and attorneys that helped avoid the need for multiple court appearances. The judges I worked with taught me to know the law and applicable rules, and I had the opportunity to confer with them on many cases that came before the court. I have also witnessed the impact of decisions made on the lives of families. In my current position, I am responsible for developing and implementing policies and procedures aimed at fostering fair, equitable access, as well as uniformity across the 14 divisions of the Probate and Family Court. I am proud of the role I have played in implementing a statewide program to help families facilitate a timely resolution outside of litigation. This initiative prioritizes effective case management and provides the parties with information and resources earlier in the process. I also assist in aligning the court's operations with best practices and its mission, which is to ensure timely justice by providing equal access to a fair, equitable, respectful, and efficient forum for the resolution of family and probate legal matters, and to help and protect all individuals, families, and children. Counselors, I appear before you today not just as a nominee, but as a representative of the diverse and inclusive fabric of the Commonwealth. Were you to approve my nomination, I would bring to the bench not only my years of experience within the Probate and Family Court, but more importantly, a strong work ethic, dedication to families, and a belief that anything is possible, which I attribute to my immigrant parents. I have chosen to dedicate much of my life to the court system, and I am fully aware of the impact it has on families, particularly those navigating the legal process unrepresented. Being on the bench would give me the opportunity to continue to serve the families of the Commonwealth, to provide compassion, even-handed justice, and a balanced and empathetic perspective. Thank you for your time and attention. Respectfully ask for your support and your vote, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of me.
Thank you so much, Attorney Yee. The way this works is the counselor sitting to my right would start the questioning, and that would be Terrence Kennedy, who has to attend online today just because he is recently tested positive with COVID. So Counselor Kennedy, would you like to question the nominee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. I apologize for not being there in person. I did have a positive COVID test yesterday, which is the third week before Christmas in a row. That's happened to me. It's incredible. But anyway, we had an opportunity to speak on the phone. We had a nice talk. You were able to answer all my questions at that time. I talked to you about the big issue that I hear about with the probate court, which is broken up trials. You start a trial one day and then come back 2 months later to fix that. How do you feel about that operates in the probate court? You've been around it a long time.
Certainly, I recognize the importance of having a continuous trial, and as much as I can, able to manage my cases to be able to make sure that that happens so that people aren't waiting days, months, weeks for an additional trial time.
Okay, well, I hope that I've had that conversation with every nominee that's come before in the 13 years I've been on, and it just seems to be the continuous practice of the probate court to have these trials broken up. Nobody ever changes it. I hope that you do. I hope you take it very seriously. Yeah, you have an outstanding resume. Your parents should be very proud of you. I'm sure they are. I wish I could shake your father's hand today and congratulate him as well, since he's in the chamber. I don't have any other questions. You answered them all when we spoke on the phone, and I appreciate the time that you gave me, and I wish you the best. I look forward to voting for you the next time we meet. I'm not sure when that's gonna be yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor DiPaolo.
Thank you, Counselor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to run through a couple issues that practitioners talk to me about when it comes to probate and family court. So if I bounce around a little bit, I apologize. One simple question to get out of the way for the public, and I've seen it in your application, but you have experience, how would you describe your experience handling complex estates, let's say including things like complex business valuations or something like that?
For the past 18 years working for the court, I've had the opportunity to sit in and on a lot of trials. And especially in different divisions like Norfolk and Essex, where like Norfolk, there are a lot of complex, high conflict trials. So, my experience has been for years being able to sit through, listen to the trials with the judges, confer with the judges in terms of some of the issues, listen to experts. So that's been my experience.
Fair to say in your roles, you've had firsthand experience in witnessing and participating in this?
Yes.
Yes. So practitioners should have confidence in that, right?
Yes.
Also has been discussed a little bit with your witnesses in your statement. But of course, so many pro se folks are appearing in probate and family court, often at the worst time in their lives. And I'm wondering if you could speak specifically to the experience of those folks and your decorum or your judicial temperament as it would appear when folks are dysregulated or are having emotional outbursts due to the nature of their experience in the court.
So as part of my experience, I've been on, I guess you could call it the front lines of the court. When I see people, it's when they're first literally walking through the door with their issues. So being able to communicate with them, understand that they're going through a difficult time, being able to help them navigate the process. Usually when I get them, they're, very highly emotional. By the time the judges get them,
Sure.
we've already sort of walked through the process and, me trying to help them understand what needs to be done to get their cases heard.
And in those rare cases where things haven't calmed by the time they appear before you as a judge, would you lean towards contempt or towards a recess?
And I think it depends on the case and what is, transpired. Certainly dealing with issues with children, that's highly emotional. And I don't think necessarily finding someone in contempt because they're upset about something they've brought to the court. But certainly that's something on a case by case basis, I can make a determination in the courtroom as to what I feel is necessary.
Well, what would rise to the level of warranting contempt for you as a judge?
If it's in terms of their behavior, I think there's certain things as a judge you can do to control your courtroom. There's different tactics you can take in terms of maybe having the person sit down to make them feel a little bit more calmer, or, having them speak, when they're speaking, stand up and having everyone else sit down. So there's certain things that you can do to try to calm people in the courtroom. I mean, if it gets to the point, I would most likely ask them to take a recess, take a break, maybe go in the hallway, collect themselves and come back in.
And on a related note, and I appreciate those approaches, there are plenty of folks, unfortunately, in the probate and family court who are survivors of domestic abuse, and in some cases, perhaps ongoing domestic abuse. And so similarly, we'll strike that. So with those folks, concerns that I hear from folks who follow things is the occasional, what some describe as abusive tactics that are being used. So whether it's frivolous motions or whatever the case may be, efforts to gum up the process, essentially to harass or to, compromise the other party. So I guess I'd ask first, have you seen examples of that in your career? And then second, how do you approach that as a judge? How do you handle that when you see it happening?
Certainly, throughout my career, yes, I have seen that. As a judge, I think part of one of my responsibilities is to manage the cases. And I think a good case manager would help with some of those situations, meaning, if people are filing multiple and frivolous pleadings, being able to either control that situation where there could be a, permission to file or permission to schedule for a hearing. So there's certain ways that you can manage your cases so that they don't get to the point of, as we see with some of these cases, 350 pleadings in the file.
And tying these two issues together, the last two issues. So if you have someone who is survivor of domestic abuse and they're in the court, and sometimes the abuser is there in the court, and sometimes they're asked to conference with the abuser. And I'm wondering, how can you ameliorate the re-traumatization that's happening? How do you address that when you sense it's happening in your courtroom?
So those are some of the things, like, as my experience with the courts, we would always ask people in terms of any questions or concerns, if there's any current maybe restraining order between the parties, to make sure that we're putting them in a safe place. Sometimes if they meet with probation, they'll meet separately. If they don't feel comfortable, that's something that I certainly wouldn't have people participate in. We as a court try to get as much information before they go before the judge, so the judge is aware that if there are concerns, the judge can address it in the courtroom.
And I'll ask this as well, and this is something I'm curious to learn more about, because this is not my practice area, but folks who are in this practice area and who advocate on these issues tell me that in some cases, survivors of domestic abuse are afraid to reveal that because they're concerned that somehow it'll impact their ability to maintain custody of their children. So I need to learn more about that, but is that a phenomenon that exists in your experience, do you suppose?
I mean, in my experience, haven't seen it that much.
Okay.
But we also have the opportunity to, when people come into court, we run carries. So we are clearly aware if there are valid and active restraining orders, between parties. There's ways for us to get the information if it's not necessarily coming directly from the parties.
Do you think the parties would be forthcoming on these matters?
In my experience, they have been. Usually when For example, they're checking in the courtroom. If I'm checking them in, I usually check them in one by one. I don't have them check in together so that if there's something that they're telling me sort of in confidence, without the other party standing right next to them.
I appreciate your attention to my questions. I know some other issues that my colleagues will bring up, I'll be paying attention to, but thank you.
Thank you.
This afternoon.
Thank you, Council. Council Jacobs.
Thank you. Hi, it's good to see you. I want to say thank you again for making the trip out to meet me. And our conversation was unique in that I didn't have a fixed space, so we got to experience the museum together. So I think that added a little flavor to our conversation that will make it memorable for me for a long time. I have some other questions I want to come back to, but I want to start from building from where Councilor DePaula was actually, because he's circling an area that I'm also interested in. And tie it to one of the things you mentioned, was the restraining order. There's a restraining order in effect that might impact how you navigate managing who is where and when and so on. And so one of the issues that has come to me from particularly groups who are advocating having experienced domestic violence themselves is that doesn't always mean, and often it doesn't mean physical abuse. But to get a restraining order, generally it has to rise to the level of physical harm to be able to get that order of protection to begin with. And meanwhile, physical abuse is horrible and highly impactful, but sometimes, a physical hit will fade much faster than some other forms of emotional, and other forms of what, is framed as coercive control abuse, with financial control or technological control, or on and on. Like there's just so many different ways of psychologically abusing a person and maintaining control over their behavior in a way that has long-lasting impacts, psychological impacts, but doesn't rise to the level of being able to get that intervention of protective order. So I just wanted to hear from you your thoughts around what, if anything, a judge can do, what, if anything, from a systemic standpoint, the court system can do in addressing, recognizing, limiting the impact of that sort of behavior, where, to build on what Councilor Paul said, oftentimes what's called abusive litigation, where exactly what he already described, is a further way for abusers to abuse and financially drain, emotionally drain, subjugate their abuse victim. So what, as a judge, what would you do if you, to A, notice it, and then react to it, respond to it, and then systemically, are there things that could be put in place around these issues?
So as a judge, in terms of responding to that, like I had said previously, I think a big thing is managing the cases, case managing, recognizing in the beginning that some of things might be occurring and being able to effectively manage the case so that it doesn't continue. I think a lot of a focus in terms of training for judges. I think that is another way that we can be able to make sure that we're keeping current with those issues. I know, and I'm not going to put the chief on the spot, but we are, he's looking at me, looking at, new judge trainings and like topics that are important for judges to get training on.
So we talked about this one-on-one. I likened it, and I still do, I think it's a good similar but different analogy, is the extensive training that they do in the hospitality industry, hotels and airlines, and recognizing victims of trafficking. Subtle cues that, our body language, just, posture and attitude, things that are nonverbal necessarily, but are signs and signals, and then add to that how to actually intervene in a way that doesn't further victimize or put into more danger the victims of trafficking. To me, it's similar but different. body language, posturing, eye contact or lack of eye contact, language, avoiding, like evasively avoiding like the minefield that for them is laid in their life, but in court should be a safe place to be able to, but being able to, doing the kind of training to help identify and then how to, and then that second part of how to respond in a way that doesn't further victimize people who are in it or experiencing that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I did want to give you an opportunity, you alluded to it in your opening statement. We had a really interesting conversation about it. Your Pathways program that you're a big part of helping to roll out, just give you an opportunity to talk about that a little bit.
So it's a program that was started around 2020. The chief was interested in finding new ways to be able to manage cases, to be able to get cases resolved early in the process if it can be. So he had created for Massachusetts the Pathways program. So one of my responsibilities with the administrative office is to implement it within all 14 divisions of the probate and family court. And we have managed to do that by the end of this year, which is this month. So every division is starting Pathways, which is part of the program, is to have an assistant judicial case manager meet with parties. Some of it's on Zoom, some of it can be in person, to see if they are able to resolve their cases. And if they aren't able to resolve their cases, to be able to provide people with the information and resources to go forward with their case.
And you were giving this, you were sharing statistics with me of how many cases seem to resolve this way and not have to go further into court.
I think our rate of agreements is about, I'd say 75 to 80%.
Fantastic.
Those cases are being resolved and they're not having to wait months for court hearings with the judges.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that that's in place. Helping unclog the system, it
Yes.
sounds like. I was flipping through your, little flags that I put for myself on your application and just remembering in our conversation that I appreciate a lot of the flags were about, please explain this to me, right? So you would allude to something that you'd worked on, like, can you just contextualize for me, explain it to me? And the way that you did so was in terms of like access to justice, like very accessible language, very clear descriptions of what the various things I had underlined were. And I value that. I think especially in a court where you do have so many unrepresented litigants coming forward, having, explained like your five kind of way of explaining, various aspects is just so important. It's just such a good skill. It's a skill that not everyone has, and so I appreciated that about you. We talked about so many things and I don't feel the need to like readdress them here today, other than to say that I think you have a phenomenal background. Your experience is different, and that's, in the court side, but you've been exposed and involved to so much. I look forward to seeing you putting that to play on the bench. I guess the last question I'll just end with is, given that you are coming sort of from this administrative space into, what do you foresee being the biggest challenge in like assuming the role of judge for you?
Really, I think it's, and not to make light of it, but I think it's concerned for my family too, where I'm gonna end up. In terms of location, is probably the biggest challenge, because I've been pretty close to home and I have done the commute for 9 years to Norfolk, so that was one of the questions that was raised was, where can you go? I'm like, the chief can send me anywhere.
Okay, so you don't really see that the job itself is going to have much challenge for you in
I
stepping
don't think
into
so.
it. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Fiera.
You. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So one of the things we talked about this morning in the SJC hearing was child parenting and shared parenting. And I tell the story all the time how the worst day of my life was when I got divorced and I had a judge screaming and yelling that shared parenting doesn't work. And it did work beautifully for 20 years. My 3 beautiful daughters are all well adjusted. And I like to hear from nominees that that's their belief, that all things being equal, mom and dad should share the kids equally. Is that your belief?
It is, it is.
Do you see that happening a lot now?
I think so. I think it's happening more and more. I'm the product of a very involved father. My kids are products of very involved parents. And I think it's something that's very important.
I recently was on a trip with it was a tour on a bus in Portugal and Spain, and there were like 39 of us. And behind me for the whole week was a divorce lawyer. I won't mention her name. I think the chief knows. Nice to see you, chief. But one of her complaints, I heard like these bad stories all day, every day. She's like in my ear. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I should get remarried. But she's talking about like one case that she told me. She said, like mom and dad, wasn't even sure if they were married, mom and dad living together. She worked nights, he worked days, so he takes care of the kids half-time. She goes to court and allegedly gets a bogus restraining order. And dad can't see his children for 2 months. She went in for an expedited hearing and it was denied. Do you see that happening? And is there any explanation why that would happen? That somebody has to wait 2 months and not see their children like that?
Depending on the facts of the case, I think it's important if someone's going to go in and get a restraining order to be able to hear the case, due process, hear the case immediately, address concerns in terms of parenting time. If there are no concerns, be able to, reestablish that parenting time with the parent that missed out on it because of the restraining order.
So if that happens, the order issues, is it like a district court, you get a 10-day hearing? And then for some reason though, she was just saying like she went in for an emergency hearing on it and just couldn't get a date for like 2 months. Do you see that ever?
If in terms of an emergency, those are things that we try to address quickly and be able to get people in sooner rather than later. I'm not sure in that case why there was a delay in coming back to the court.
Do you see scheduling as a problem these days with getting people in on a timely manner overall?
I think since COVID, we've done a really good job in terms of managing the cases. I think Pathways has helped a lot in terms of pulling cases off the judge's docket so that they can deal with the cases that they need to deal with in the court. Having other managers be able to address cases that don't have to necessarily go before the judge. I think that's all helping in terms of our docket.
I don't think I have anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Devaney.
Nice to see you again. You. I really enjoyed meeting you. The hours that we talked about our parents being immigrants and the experience that they had. It wasn't so easy in those days. First of all, I want to ask you. 3 years in practice.
I was practicing for approximately 3 years, yes.
So, so tell me, when you left there, why didn't you continue? I mean, that law practice went out of business. What made you not want to continue to be a lawyer in a firm or whatever? I mean, what happened at that time?
I had the opportunity to come back to the court, and it's something that I always had wanted to do. I was, I guess, at a crux of my career because I had the opportunity to either be a partner at that firm at that time or go back and work for the courts. And it was important to me to be able to go back to public service.
That come up, how do you get that position, sessions clerk? Do you hear of an opening or how does that happen?
There was an opening and I applied because I had worked there as a law clerk. The judges were very familiar with my work and I had that opportunity to be able to work with me on every full-time basis is something that they were interested in.
Yeah, the 18 years you had, you had a great resume. How much you can get 18 years as a single lawyer and your experience? Tell me the comparison.
I think my experience in the court is absolutely tremendous. It's almost like having an apprenticeship, being able to work every single day close to judges, sitting in sessions with them, being able to listen to cases, confer with them on cases, being able to help them draft orders and judgments, you know, and be able to ask questions every day. I think it was the best experience I could have to become a judge.
Which position on joint custody?
To me, it's important for, you know, as long as it's in the best interest of the children, you know, for both parents to be involved in the children's lives. I've grown up with both parents being very involved with us. Both my parents have been very involved with my children. Same with my husband's family. Everyone's been very involved, and I think it's important as long as it's in their best interest that they have a relationship.
In your experience, have you, has there been a case, how many cases have there been when a child is removed from the home?
There have been cases that's happened. A lot of times when they're coming to the probate and family court, there's been some involvement with DCF, but people are coming in either seeking guardianship because the child's in, you know, an unsafe environment. Usually it's juvenile court, or DCF will go in and take the children.
And how about moving? You know, that the wife has been involved in divorce, she wants to move with the children. Have you been involved in any of that?
I've sat in on trials where removal was an issue, yes.
About that and what the outcome was, or would you make a recommendation?
You know, as long as they've, you know, depending on the case and the facts of the case, if that person who's seeking to move has a real advantage to moving, if it's in children's best interest, if that person has employment, if they've got family and they've got a real reason to move, certainly that's something that would be considered.
Okay, I'm going to tell you a case, and Counselor Atty and I were counselors at that time, the only ones at that time. This is when I first was elected. Well, it was 35 years ago. And it was, we voted for this woman. And then I read in the Boston Globe a year later about her. And there was, she had a case. And first of all, there was a divorce, but it was friendly. And the father of the 3 daughters, and the husband was very loving of the children. He'd been very close to them, he'd see them every day. And even the night before Christmas, he'd stay overnight to see them in the morning when they got their presents. So she went to court seeking a removal with her children to Oregon. And she had no job waiting, no family waiting, no job, no friends. Nothing. And anyway, this judge approved of her. What would you have done?
In that fact pattern, I don't think I would allow her to remove with the children.
And, you know, to me, it was so sad, and I hate the word visitation, I don't like to use it anymore. But this judge gave the father visitation, computer 6 to 7 with his children. You can't hug a computer. So he's divorced from his children. It isn't that he can see them every week or, you know, but, you know, to me, it has to be a valid reason to do that. In all the positions, what do you feel that you accomplished more and it was so important?
I would have to say my current position now in terms of playing a role with Pathways. I think I'm seeing the effects of that, how it's helping the courts, helping people get through their process. And I think that's important to be able to have people resolve cases as early as they can, if they can, and also to be able to have people provide, be provided information and resources, have someone spend the time to talk to them about their case.
So how much involvement do you have on the decision in your position with the judge in these different cases?
In terms of the cases, like you know, a lot of times the judges will ask me questions and confer with me. If they are having, you know, difficulty trying to make a decision, we'll discuss it. I've helped them write orders and judgments. I've helped them review their findings and their decisions. So, you know, those are things that judges have gone to me for and asked for my opinion.
You know, when you think of family, and family was considered the definition till now, how do you feel in the last 18 years? Where you haven't been a judge, but you've been legal, how do you, what changes do you see? And what will you have to learn to job, or will you have to?
I think families have changed. They've changed in terms of who is part of a family. I think a family could be almost anyone at this point. You know, my children, my family isn't just necessarily my children and my husband. Our family includes my parents who have helped raise them, my mother and father-in-law who have helped with the children. So I think that that's, you know, been a change in the past 18 years.
I mean, there are, I don't know how much case law you've been in recent years, but judges didn't have the cases 25 years ago that will be before you. You make decisions. I mean, you have, in probate, I don't know if will come before you, but you could have a gay couple. And who gets a child and all of that. So that's a learning curve, isn't it, for you to, will that be coming up? Does that come up in the probate court?
I think you take all the, you know, the facts of each case and make a decision based on what's in front of you. No matter who they are.
So, so when you look at this, you know, and you certainly have all qualifications to be a judge, is there anything that you think you're going to have to, you know, learn or research? Take the bench?
I think, you know, obviously being a judge is a different role than I've been in, but I certainly know how to look things up and ask questions if I need to, depending on what comes up. Being able to know what resources are out there for me, I think that that's a benefit that I have because I've been in the court system.
Well, I have to tell you, in 25 years, this is a very different, you know, resume that I've ever seen. And it's quite extensive as far as the different positions you've had in the court. Is there anything that comes to mind that was so rewarding in one of these positions that you've had? I think it's probably the second to last position that you had the most. Do you want to tell us about that?
As a judicial case manager, I think one of the most rewarding things was just being able to help people. And that could be just as simple as answering a question. I think it's important to be able to spend the time, listen to people, really give them, you know, your attention in terms of what they're coming into court asking for. Being able to work with different people. I've always, for many years, I've been sort of the go-to person, being able to help people, whether it's, you know, staff in the court or the public or attorneys or anyone. That's been the most rewarding part of my
And then
jobs.
language barriers too. You've seen that.
Yes.
Yeah. To me, the probate court is so sensitive. And I often think back on those years, and I wonder what happened to those children and the father who couldn't see them. And I look back and I say, wow, how could any judge decide to take the children away from the father? But no, to me, it's just vindictive. There was no reason. There was no purpose of her being there. But she went across the country, you know? So, when did you decide that I could be a judge? I'm going to apply. Tell us about that.
So as you see from my application, I've applied a couple of times. It's something I've always been interested in doing. I think as I've worked through the courts, the many years I've worked closely with judges, I felt like that was something that I could do, especially when they're asking me questions. You know, being able to help people has always been something that I've wanted to do.
So you felt that you were ready for it, and people encourage you?
A lot of people have encouraged me. I think everyone in this room has encouraged me to apply, yes.
You feel a lot of support here. Well, I'm just so pleased that you did. And I've said it many times, I'm never vote for anyone. And you haven't. And, you know, just being with you and talked about your family, you lit up, and what a wonderful, we don't see that grandparents, you know, live near and in-laws and everything. What a wonderful opportunity it is. Really experience. There's a lot of us don't have that opportunity. So you're gonna be proud.
Thank you.
So I'm just delighted that you applied. And as I said, it's a very unusual resume. And I kept reading them, said, oh my gosh, you did have a lot of responsibilities. So I think you do a wonderful job as a judge too. Thank you for all your time. I really enjoyed it. Did you take a picture of the Belcher Marble?
I did not.
No,
I,
you did not. We'll have to think about whether you're in the Hall of Fame. But thank you again for all your
thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Ionel.
Thank you very much. Before I ask a question, it's great to see one of your biggest supporters here. Chief Justice Case, he's the best. He's the best. I hope the entire guy is a second God. You got the dream team over here. Good to stick with both of them. You know, we had an SJC hearing today, and one of the leaders in the father. Okay. I'm being question, use the phrase joint. Phrase, I don't like, I'm not sure what it means. What does it mean to you?
I think of joint custody. A lot of times I'm thinking of joint legal custody. I like to think of parenting plans and shared custody. I like to use the word shared custody because I think parents share in their children.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Mother and father. If the father has, let's say there's two kids, if the father has the kids 80% of the time, and the mother has the 20, is it fair to say they have shared custody under their terminology of word shared custody?
To me, shared means share, more so is in terms of equitable time with the children. In that situation, it could be something where father may have 80% of the time, but, his time could be depending on what the children are doing. It could be sleep time, or as long as their time is equitable with the children.
That's another word, equitable. Equitable can mean a lot of different things. I'm gonna put you on the spot. I don't like these words, shared, equitable. I like simple terms. Short philosophy. Take up the role of the judge for a second. What's your philosophy on shared parenting? I'll pay mine first.
That's 50%.
You can use that for a law, you can work the share. I don't know what the hell that means. The old fashioned way, 50-50. Obviously, if there's drug issues, if there's alcohol issues, I'm talking about a mother's a great mother, father's a great mother, but they don't like each other. Each one wants 100% enough. Okay, so under those situations, you're a 50-50 guy. What's your philosophy?
As long as it's in the best interest of the children, I think that parents should have an opportunity to spend as much as time as possible.
I'm not giving you a hard time, but to me,
Just agree with them.
I have to say, my husband,
as long as best interest of the child, or anyone can say anything. It's in the best interest of the child, if you're not making this up. Education parent, the mother's great, but at night, I go over the homework. Maybe the mother's not as good. That's a lot of baloney. Come on, you have 2 kids?
I do.
You know, support the baby. Depending on the age, reading a book at night, let's watching a movie together. When you say best interest, that's the book. You look at the book. I get it. That's what the book says. To me, that's important. You help them brush their teeth. You go to their soccer game, then you come home, you have their friends over, they have a sleepover. Like 50-50. I haven't got that from you yet. Yeah, I'm gonna make a, I'm telling you what I'm saying, but you
Yes.
don't believe that.
I do. I mean, my husband certainly, in my career, he's been the one assisting with the children most of the time because I've been working, or when I was working in Norfolk, I was commuting and he had to be there.
Okay, I got another tough question, not getting off the hook, you live in David.
Yes, I do.
Now, there's a couple lives in David, but they get divorced. They get divorced, they got 2 minor kids. Okay, they're 6 and 8. Okay, but guess what? One of the parents is moving. Well, one of the parents is moving, yes, the home run would be if both parents live in Peabody. It don't always work that way. What's 10 miles away from Peabody? What's a town? You live there, I live in Boston. How far away?
No.
That's closer.
Depends what part of
Chelsea.
Peabody you're in. He said it depends what part of Peabody you're in.
Okay. That's right. Ever.
Okay.
Now, situation. Whatever I said, 6 and 8, where they go to school. And lives in Peabody, the other one lives in Everett. What's your philosophy? What would you like to see in a situation like that? 7 days of the week. What would you like to see? I'm not putting you on the spot here, but I am putting you on the spot. Because I know what I want.
50-50, I think.
What if you have that situation?
50-50 if I can.
Well, why can't you go to judge? Well, you're not gonna get fired. You're not gonna get fired. So would you have a plan where they alternate, what's the realistic part? 4 days, 3 days. 4 days with the father, 3 days with the mother, and then they alternate that. So they go to school, the father or mother is driving during the week, and then they're driving, 4-3, so it is 50-50. Is that what your heart says, or are you just trying to make me feel good?
I think that's what my heart says.
Because you-
I hope I'm making you feel good.
Because I want you to make a decision. Think of your 2 kids, what you would want if it happened to you. To me, I think it's so important. The probate court has come a long, long way. Way back when I was whatever, many years ago, it used to be for the husband every other weekend and maybe Wednesday night for, 5 to 7 there. But it's come a long way. I think they're doing a great job. Okay. Contempt. Too many probates. So if I'm saying the wrong words, just tell me. Contempt. Now, one of the spouses or the father is supposed to see the child. Johnny's sick tonight. Yeah, right. Next week, can you believe it? Johnny's sick again. Okay? We have great parents. They both works at the probate court. And you're gonna have the courage, because at some point, John can't be sick every time. One of them. You're gonna have the courage, again, if I'm saying the wrong word, you can tell me. To say that one of the parents you can hold in contempt. What does contempt mean?
To me, I mean, in that scenario, if that's an issue, it could rise to the level of maybe changing the custody arrangement. It's gonna continue.
Yeah, I mean, so you do, I'm gonna check out if I make some call. To me, I'm a strong advocate for children, which you might be able to tell. You have these temporary orders. And probably courts really, really good, I get it. And now you have the temporary orders today, parenting plan and child support and health. Okay, they just filed for divorce 2-3 months ago, whatever. And those hearings generally, generally last. Someone's filed for divorce, 1, 2, or 3, I don't know how long it takes. We're going into temporary orders. Father's got his attorney, mother's got her attorney. How long do those temporary orders, those hearings last? They're like 5 minutes, they last 2 hours, how long do they last?
I think it depends on the case,
Generally, give me an average.
probably about 15 minutes.
Huh?
I'd say about 15 minutes on a temporary order.
50.
1-5.
I love Judge Casey. I think that's crazy. I don't care about the money part. If that takes 2 minutes. But here it is. The parenting plan. What's this on 15 minutes, the money part said for 5 minutes. 10 minutes? Oh, man, I don't think I need 10 minutes. I need a lot longer than that. And that's what I worry about. And I know they're busy. I don't have to say it. But here it is, 10 minutes. I wouldn't want my kids, some judge to make this, I don't have my kids, as you can tell, no. I want a judge to make a decision on my kids. Who they're gonna be with, would you want that?
You're also filing pleadings that I would be reviewing as a judge.
Pleadings, they're all great. The mother's one says, oh, Mary's the greatest mother in town. We took him to Disney World, the father says, no, he's the greatest. We took him to the Red Sox game. They're both at the soccer games, they're both at the baseball games, they both watch movies. That's pretty tough. And they both want him 100% of the time. To me, I don't know the solution, but well, that's scary. You want the best interest of the children. I'm sure a hearing about the last 10 minutes on parenting plan, if the other 5 are mine. I can't imagine how that's in the best interest of the child. It's possible.
Yes.
And you can't do it anymore. It's probably time. It's time restraints. I'm gonna follow you. People will be like, oh. No, I get it. I want a trick, a bonus question?
Why?
A bonus question. No, a bonus, I do this once in a while. It's a bonus question. You have this is a bonus question. Thanks, you get it? 50-50. There we go. What?
Say no.
What is public administrator? What is the public administrator? Oh, that's good. That's good. Most people don't get that. Most people, so this is good. You don't get a prize. What's a public administrator?
Has to get appointed if there is no heirs or no one in terms of the estate that would be able to file.
Yeah, she got the bonus. She got the bonus question. Most people don't know what that is. It's very, very, really happens. I was a public administrator. That's the only reason. Very, very. You're like in the 1% of all the presidents.
So you know too.
Yeah. I have a big questions. You got a lot of good support here. You have a great resume. When your name comes before us, we will have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. So a couple of more things before we let you out of the hot seat. I have received 15 letters of support. I don't know that I've ever received that many letters. They were still coming in this morning. I was like trying to print them before I could jump in the car to go. So I will take all of these letters and give them to our esteemed secretary to be submitted into the record. The one I'm not handing to her, I'm just going to take a couple of pieces from. This was very unexpected. It's actually from somebody I grew up with, who I think you know. And it's very meaningful because I've known this woman most of my life, as well as her family. And she talks about you and says, well, I do not know her work, I know the woman. And then goes on to talk about your attributes as a person and as a mother and with your children and helping your husband coach the teams. And you know, as a mom, this woman wrote, you know, juggling work and family can be very stressful at times, but Michelle understands what needs to be done with care and patience, both qualities that I believe are important for family court. And I think she's right. You hit it right on the head. She also said that you're very kind-hearted, but you do rule the house with a firm hand. True? So, this is from Eileen Curry, who I've known her family, my entire life. So very, very meaningful to me. Your resume is stellar. You know, they're really, thank you, Chief, for being here, and thank you for the work that you do, Dominic, as you as well, all of you, in the courts. We appreciate the work and your dedication to the Commonwealth, all of you. Probate court is not quite one of Dante's circles of hell, like some of the courts are, but it's a very stressful place to be. And I don't know that we have many people as prepared to sit on the bench in this court as you are. So, and plus, you live in Peabody. You know, I'm 5 generations. I don't live there anymore, but I still claim it. So, you know, that's a little bonus gift. I will be thrilled to put your name into nomination the next time that we meet. And with that, this hearing is.